Okay, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into a new paper. Something pretty significant, I think. It's giving us our first real look under the hood of GPT-4o.
Right. Specifically, its image generation and editing side.
Exactly. We've all seen the demos. They look amazing. But this paper asks, how does it really stack up when you test it rigorously?
And that's really crucial, isn't it? GPT-4o landed with all this omnimodal excitement, blending text, audio, vision, and its image stuff definitely felt like a leap forward. You can see the potential impact on creative work, interactive AI, all sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, without a systematic evaluation, it's hard to know the true strengths. And, importantly, where the weaknesses are. This paper gives us that diagnostic.
Got it. So the paper is GPT-MGVAL, a comprehensive benchmark for diagnosing GPT-4o in image generation. That's by Yen et al. And their goal seems pretty clear. Test GPT-4o quantitatively and qualitatively across 3 key areas using this new benchmark they developed.
Exactly. And for anyone just tuning in or needing the super quick version, here are the main takeaways, like the key insights for a quick summary. First, this GPT-ImgEval study. It's the first big benchmark designed specifically for testing GPT-4o's image skills, text-to-image, editing based on instructions, and even creating images that need world knowledge.
Okay.
Second, across all 3 test areas, they call them JennyVal, Reason Edit, and Wise GPT-4o didn't just do well, it significantly beat existing models, like set new state-of-the-art scores.
Wow.
Third, and this is fascinating, they try to figure out how it works internally. They use this clever classifier method, basically teaching a model to spot the difference between known architectures. And the evidence strongly points towards GPT-4o using a diffusion-based method for the final image creation step, probably combined with an autoregressive, transformer-style backbone for the smarts.
Interesting, like peeking inside without the source code.
Kind of, yeah. Empirical clues. Fourth, though, it's not perfect. The test revealed clear weaknesses.
Yeah.
Sometimes editing is inconsistent, it struggles with really complex scenes, non-English text in images is a problem, and it has this odd tendency to make things too perfect, too refined.
Over-refinement. Okay.
Yeah, like it struggles to be intentionally blurry. And finally, the safety angle. Even though these images look incredibly real, current top-tier AI detection tools can still spot them pretty reliably.
Ah, so they're detectable.
Highly detectable, actually. The researchers think it might be down to artifacts from some kind of internal super-resolution process it uses.
All right, that's a fantastic overview. Let's unpack all of that now. How did they actually set up this rigorous testing, and what did they find in each of those specific areas?
Well, the first step was building the benchmark itself, GPT-MGEval. Because, the standard metrics like FID or flip score, they give you a general sense of quality or text alignment.
Right, like overall goodness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they don't tell you if the model can count 3 apples correctly or put the cat on the mat, not next to it, or follow a complex editing command. GPT-MGEval uses existing datasets plus new ones they built, all focused on these tricky compositional and reasoning tasks.
Makes sense. But running thousands of tests. You mentioned there wasn't an official API for image generation back in April 2025 when they did this. How did they manage the scale?
Yeah, that was clever. They basically had to automate a web browser. They wrote custom scripts.
Like screen scraping?
Sort of, yeah, but more interactive. The scripts would type the prompts into the GPT-4o chat interface, wait for the image, and then save it. And to make sure each test was independent, not biased by chat history. The script would actually close the chat window and open a fresh one for every single prompt.
Wow, okay. That's dedication. It must have taken a while.
Definitely. But it ensures cleaner data. And importantly, they've open sourced those scripts so anyone can replicate their results or build on them.
That's great for reproducibility. Okay, so using this setup, they looked at 3 dimensions. Let's start with the first one, text-to-image generation, using their JennyVal benchmark. What does that measure, and how did GPT-4o do?
So JennyVal is all about compositional control. Can the model handle prompts that specify object counts, colors, spatial relationships, attribute binding, a red cube behind a blue sphere, 2 dogs, a yellow banana, and a purple grape. Stuff like that.
Think of things earlier models often messed up.
Exactly. It tests if the model really understands the relationships in the prompt, not just the keywords. Quantitatively, GPT-4o did really well here. Table 1 in the paper shows an overall score of 0.84.
Which is high compared to others.
Yeah, significantly better than strong diffusion models like SDXL, DALI 3, and even models that try to enhance generation with LLMs like GutT or Janus Pro. It aced things like counting, getting a 0.85 score. Colors were almost perfect at 0.92.
Yeah.
Positioning objects correctly was 0.75, and attribute binding, getting the right feature on the right object, was 0.61. That binding score is actually pretty good. It's a notoriously hard problem. Shows strong reasoning about what goes where.
And the qualitative examples they showed, like generating 3 sports balls correctly or getting the carrot left of an orange right, it does seem much more reliable at those specific instructions.
It definitely seems to have a better grasp of parsing and executing those complex compositional prompts compared to what came before.
Okay, so strong start on basic generation. What about the second area, image editing, using the Reason Edit benchmark?
Right, this is where things get really impressive. Reason Edit tests instruction-based editing. So you give it an image and text instructions that might require reasoning, like understand the scene, figure out spatial stuff, sizes, colors, even use common sense.
Can you give an example instruction?
Sure. Things like replace the fruit that contains the most vitamin C with an orange. The model has to know which fruit that is and make the edit. Or maybe change the middle panda to a cat.
Okay, so requires understanding and editing skill.
Precisely. And the results. Figure 4 shows GPT-4o got a score of 0.929.
0.929, that sounds really high.
It's massive. The previous best model they list, Smart Edit, was way down at 0.572. So GPT-4o jumped over 0.35 points ahead. It just completely dominated this task.
That's a huge leap. What does that tell us?
It points to incredibly strong instruction following and really fine-grained control. It can understand complex requests related to the image content and execute them accurately.
I remember seeing that example they mentioned, changing something in an image, and GPT-4o also correctly changed its reflection in a mirror in the scene.
Yes, the cat in the mirror example.
They have to...
That's stunning, right? It suggests it's not just swapping pixels. It has some deeper semantic understanding of the 3D scene structure and how reflections work.
That's really advanced.
It is. But there's a small caveat the paper mentions. Even with that near-perfect score, sometimes the edits aren't perfectly clean. It might subtly change the overall color tone or image dimensions unintentionally when making a specific edit.
Ah, okay.
The evaluation metric they used, GPT-ImgEval score, might not fully capture those subtle inconsistencies. So the score is amazing, but there might still be some practical quirks.
Good nuance. Okay, third dimension. World knowledge-informed semantic synthesis, using the WISE benchmark. This sounds like it tests general knowledge.
Pretty much, yeah. WISE tests if the model can use its underlying real-world knowledge stuff it learned from text data, presumably to generate images. It's not just word-to-pixel mapping. It requires knowing about culture, history, science, how things work.
Like what?
Examples they give are prompts like, show an octopus's behavior when facing danger, which requires knowing they release ink, or generate a colossal sculpture in Brazil, which needs knowledge of Christ the Redeemer.
I see. So it connects the language model's knowledge to the image generation.
Exactly. And again, GPT-4o came out on top. Table 2 shows a score of 0.80 on WISE, significantly higher than other text-to-image models or even other unified multimodal models. It really highlights the benefit of having that powerful LLM foundation combined with strong visual synthesis.
The examples are cool too, like asking for the U.S. national symbol bird and getting a bald eagle, or asking for a specific medieval helmet type and it gets it right. Or that seesaw example.
Oh yeah, the child and the leaf are standing on both sides of the teeter-totter.
Right, and it generated a seesaw that was plausibly tilted because it knows a child weighs more than a leaf.
It's inferring the implications of the prompt based on world knowledge. It shows that omnimodal capability really involves integrating its knowledge base into the visual output.
Okay, so across the board generation, editing, knowledge-based synthesis, it's setting new benchmarks. Now, you mentioned earlier they use this data to speculate about the architecture. That sounds really interesting. How do they approach that?
Yeah, this is the detective work part, trying to infer the internal mechanisms. The big question was about the image decoder, the part that actually creates the pixels. Is it VAR-based or diffusion-based?
Explain this quickly again.
Sure. VAR, variational autoregressive, often builds an image sort of piece by piece, or refining it in predictable stages. Diffusion models usually start with random noise and gradually refine it step by step into the target image, guided by the prompt. Two different philosophies.
Got it.
They had two main hypotheses shown in their figures. Hypothesis 1, maybe it's purely VAR, kind of like a model called VAR Infinity. That might explain that visual effect you sometimes see in the interface where the image seems to sharpen up.
Okay. Hypothesis 2.
Hypothesis 2, a hybrid model. An autoregressive backbone like a transformer, handles the complex understanding, the prompt, maybe the image context if editing. This backbone predicts some kind of intermediate representation like tokens or latents, and those then guide a diffusion model head, which actually generates the final image.
So transformer for smarts, diffusion for pixels.
Basically, yeah, and that hybrid idea fits better with some hints. OpenAI dropped in their system card, and even an Easter egg diagram they apparently released, which showed a flow-like token transformer diffusion image.
So how did they test which hypothesis was more likely if they can't see the actual code?
Super clever method. They took known models, VAR infinity, which is VAR, and Flux, which is diffusion, and generated lots of images with both. Then they trained a classifier model. Its only job was to learn to tell the difference. Is this image VAR style or diffusion style, based on subtle artifacts or patterns?
Training a sniffer dog for architecture.
Exactly. Once this classifier got good at telling VAR from diffusion images apart, they fed it images generated by GPT-4o. And the classifier consistently, overwhelmingly said GPT-4o's images look diffusion-based.
Wow.
It's not absolute proof, of course, but it's strong empirical evidence from the output characteristics that supports hypothesis 2, the AR backbone plus diffusion head structure. It strongly suggests diffusion is involved in the final pixel generation stage.
That's really neat forensic work. Did they look at the input side too, like how it sees images for editing?
They speculated on that too, yeah, based on behavior. They think it probably uses a continuous image tokenizer, not a discrete VQ-based one.
Why that distinction?
Two main reasons. First, an observation. If you give GPT-4o an image and ask it to make no changes, the output isn't identical. There are often subtle shifts in lighting, color, maybe even object details.
I see.
VQ-based tokenizers are usually really good at near-perfect reconstruction because they map image patches to a fixed codebook. The fact GPT-4o doesn't reconstruct perfectly suggests it's likely not using that discrete VQ approach.
Okay, what's the second reason?
Second, some other recent research, like a paper on Unitalk, suggested that VQ tokenization might actually hinder a model's deeper comprehension abilities sometimes. And GPT-4o clearly has very strong comprehension.
Right.
So putting those together, they lean towards it using continuous tokens, maybe something akin to how the MR model works, possibly involving diffusion loss, even on the encoding side. Their diagrams show possibilities for this.
So the picture emerging is a powerful transformer core for language and reasoning, maybe a continuous way of encoding images, feeding into a diffusion model to actually paint the picture. That's a compelling hypothesis.
Seems to fit the evidence they gathered, yeah.
Okay, let's pivot now. Despite this power, the paper didn't shy away from the weaknesses. Where did this deep dive reveal GPT-4o still has, let's say, growing pains?
Absolutely. The diagnosis found several key limitations. One is inconsistency. We touched on this with the no changes prompt. It often messes with dimensions, aspect ratio, or crops automatically, even when you don't ask it to. Limits precise control.
Okay, what else?
Overrefinement, and a bias towards high resolution. This is interesting. It seems almost hardwired to produce super sharp, detailed images. If you ask for something blurry or low detail, it often struggles and sharpens it anyway.
Like it can't help itself?
Kind of. They showed an example asking it to add wrinkles to Einstein, and it produced this hyper-realistic, almost too detailed texture. It finds it hard to deliberately reduce quality or apply subtle effects like blur.
Interesting. Any other issues?
The brush tool for editing. While it exists, using it often triggers a regeneration of the whole image, not just the painted area. This means you can get unexpected global shifts in color or texture. It's not true, localized in painting, like in Photoshop. They also noted outputs sometimes get a warmer color cast after edits.
Right, so editing isn't perfectly surgical yet?
Not always, no. Then there are failures in complicated scenes. Despite its strengths, put too many people in a scene, or ask for complex interactions between people and objects, and it can still get confused. You might see weird poses, anatomical errors, or objects overlapping in impossible ways. Dense scenes remain hard.
Okay, and the last one?
Non-English text. It's great at rendering English text inside generated images, but the paper found it really struggles with other languages, using Chinese as an example. It messes up fonts, uses the wrong character forms.
Why is that?
Likely a combination of less training data for non-English text within images, and maybe the inherent structural complexity of rendering different scripts accurately.
Those are all really important limitations for users to know about. Did the paper compare it directly to anything else or look at safety?
It did briefly compare multi-round editing performance with Gemini 2.0 Flash. The takeaway was, both degrade over multiple edits, but GPT-4o maintained consistency better.
But Gemini had an edge somewhere.
Speed. Gemini 2.0 Flash was noticeably faster, and the editing workflow was different. Gemini needed manual re-uploads for each step, while GPT-4o handled it conversationally. So trade-offs there.
Consistency versus speed. Got it. And the safety point detectability, you mentioned they're detectable.
Yes, highly so. This was table 3. State-of-the-art forensic tools, models specifically trained to spot AI images like effort or fake VLM, were over 95% accurate at identifying GPT-4o's output.
Despite looking so realistic to the human eye.
Exactly. And the clue seems to be that super resolution or refinement tendency we talked about. A detector called NPR, which looks for artifacts typical of image upscaling, scored 99% accuracy on GPT-4o images.
Wow, so the process leaves a fingerprint.
It strongly suggests that, yeah, whether it's upscaling artifacts or perhaps even some subtle watermark-like patterns, the current generation process seems to leave identifiable traces for these specialized detectors. This is separate from OpenAI's content safety filters, like blocking harmful prompts. This is about the technical detectability of the output itself.
Okay, so wrapping this up, this GPT-MGVAL paper paints a really detailed picture. GPT-4o is clearly a beast in image generation and editing, setting new benchmarks.
No doubt. It excels at understanding prompts, following instructions, even leveraging world knowledge in ways previous models couldn't.
But it's definitely not magic. The deep dive highlighted real limitations. The inconsistencies, the struggle with complex scenes or non-English text, that weird over-refinement issue.
Exactly. And those insights, plus the fascinating detective work suggesting that hybrid AR diffusion architecture.
Right, and the fact that the images are still detectable by forensic tools.
All provide super valuable context. For researchers building the next thing and for developers actually using GPT-4o right now, this benchmark gives the community a solid baseline and points to where improvements are needed.
So for you listening, maybe you're an AI researcher and engineer building with these tools. What stands out from this evaluation? What are the big implications for how you approach multimodal AI after seeing this deep dive into GPT-4o's image capabilities?
And here's something to chew on. Given that even these incredibly advanced high-fidelity images from GPT-4o are detectable by current tools, what does that mean for the future? Are we heading towards a world where perfect, undetectable AI realism is the goal? Or is some level of built-in detectability actually a necessary feature for responsible AI development? Is it a bug to be fixed or a feature to be maintained?